G'day folks, welcome back to the Coffin Nail. My name is Lightbreaker, and today I am chatting with Wayne and Evan from Wilderun. Guys, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us, man.
Yeah. It's a pleasure to have you with us today. So you guys put out your fourth album, Epigon, on January 7th on Century Media, and lads, it's amazing. I'll be perfectly honest, I hadn't heard of Wilderun until January 7th, and I was looking at the releases, I'm like, all right, let's give this a go, and I was blown away.
Thank you, man. You really picked the most dense album to start listening to us.
Maybe. Like, my favorite album ever is Ghost Reveries by Opeth, so it's right up my alley.
Yeah, cool.
Awesome.
So, trying to decipher the album, there's a lot going on. Long songs, a lot of lyrics. I can see some elemental, earth-based language and rhetoric. I noticed the first half of the album is all songs ending with Exhaler, Woolgather, etc. And the second half is the distraction suite, if you can call it that. So, can you guys explain Epigon? Like, what's going on?
Well, that's actually an interesting point, is the song title thing, is because that was definitely an intentional choice to end all those songs with the ending, because more than any other record, this record focuses on identity and self identity, and in particular for me, it has a lot to do with the plight of not only being an artist and a musician, but kind of viewing yourself as one and trying to wrap your own persona and identity in that. And that doesn't necessarily have to do with being an artist. That's just my perspective. But just like the difficulties and toil that can come with being too wrapped up in how you view yourself and how you identify yourself, and the self-consciousness that comes with being too worried with how other people perceive you and things like that. So it's a multi-layered in that sense. But that's why every song is sort of a different facet of a personality, and especially a personality tied in with creation and art. So that's sort of, it goes through a lot of different explorations, but that's sort of the crux of it overall, I'd say.
Cool. That's awesome. And one thing that jumps out to me straight away is the massive orchestral arrangements. And I believe, Wayne, you may be the mastermind behind a lot of that, correct?
No, that's true. On this record, I did all the orchestra stuff, yeah.
And I try to avoid sort of cliche questions like this, but in your case, I have to ask, how do you conceptualize these things? How do you decide about all these different layers of instruments, choirs, and where they go, things like that?
Well, I mean, yeah, that's like the $50 million question for every song. Where the hell do we put all these things? But I think that, pardon me if you can hear my dogs barking.
Oh, good, man. I had to lock mine out of here before the interview.
There's probably a really big nothing outside that they had to bark at. Yeah, I mean, generally a lot of the orchestra stuff, before we even start to attempt arrangements like that, usually Dan and Evan and myself, we spend hours on a Facebook chat, a Facebook video chat like this, going through the song and listening to it, and we write down time-stamped notes, and it's oh, okay, here's the first verse, and then from 1 minute 20 to 1 minute 50 we want to feel this thing, and then we talk at great length section by section about what kind of emotion are we trying to draw out of certain parts, and then that leads to the discussion of, what orchestral or folk or metal instruments will evoke those emotions the best. So by the end of talking ad nauseum about any song, we have this 4 or 5 page document with all these timestamps, which is really helpful as a roadmap, because when I go to start orchestrating, I can follow what we've already discussed. Because, you're kind of inspired. The three of us talking together, the creativity is much more inspired, because we're oh, yeah, well, we're going to in like this quiet part in Wool Gatherer, we want it to be folky, but there needs to be more. It's like, oh, how about a string quartet? Like that'll, then those kinds of inspirational or those, inspired thoughts come just talking about it. Then when it comes time to actually execute it, I can use this roadmap, and it's more about picking the right sounds in, virtual instruments in the computer to then execute what we've already talked about.
Right.
So that's sort of the process. So, that goes over any part of any song, whether it's large or quiet or whatever. We've already got this roadmap of what we're trying to achieve emotionally, and then we go from there.
And does that draw out the songwriting process then? Like, does it feel like it takes a long time?
The songs are at that point, the songs are more or less written. I mean, Evan can probably talk more about this, but most of what we work off of our demos that Evan has provided with, like your guitar demos, because Evan has a lot of this material already. I'll let you talk about that, Evan, because that's more the kernel of this starts with you. So
yeah, at least thus far with the band, with the songwriting process, I've sort of been like the core songwriter, but it's very much like, because of the difference in my ability, I guess my composing abilities versus Wayne, yours, or Dan's, like my songwriting style, my composing abilities are much more about like just really baseline, like the skeletons of songs, like just messing with melodies and harmonies and rhythm and just kind of the overall structure. But it's very much like a template, it's a foundation.
Right. And
thus far for the band, and this could change over time. We've talked about maybe switching this up in the future, but for now, thus far, I'll write a song very much just stripped down, like, either just on guitar. A lot of times for me, it's a combination of guitar and piano. I kind of like to switch off between those two because they just give me different perspectives and different ideas come out.
Yeah.
But, and then I'll make a demo with really just basic stuff, just the chords, the melody. I used to make like a really basic, I have some understanding of drums, so I used to do like a pretty stripped down basic drum thing too. Mm-hmm. But for the first time actually in the band, for Epigon, I actually didn't do any drum demos. I let John have even more full reign, like even more freedom to choose what he wanted to do, which I think was a good idea. Anyways, so but that's all I provide. And then from that really stripped down demo I make, that then we start that process that Wayne was talking about, where we do the timestamps on the demos that I make, and then we all discuss the orchestration, the synth ideas, or even the extra like band playing ideas that I didn't necessarily think of while making the demo. Mm-hmm. And then because that's Wayne, especially Wayne and Dan, like their expertise really lies, one of their strengths really lies in arrangement and texture and just sound, which I feel like I have a little less knowledge in. So it's kind of a good combination. That combination I think works together to create the final product pretty well.
Yeah. And I've actually seen some of your timestamp notes. I had a really good time on your Instagram.
Oh yeah, for the distraction thing.
Distraction too, yeah. And I quote, bass drop over the whole fucking thing, high pitched note ascending over the whole fucking thing, make everyone barf, fuck this shit, it's gross, help. Yeah. And that's some John Williams type shit right there.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm pretty sure any John Williams Steven Spielberg meeting had the same note. I think that was exactly the note for the melody, the main theme for E.T. Make everyone barf.
But joking aside, do things like that help you get a sense of what you all want to do with it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that example, of course, is just I think we were just like, oh, it's so funny to write. We want this to sound really chaotic. It was just funny to write, but I mean, more or less in a more comedic way. But those kinds of things are obviously helpful. I mean, any sort of adjective that describes what you're trying to achieve, I always think is ultimately more helpful than describing instruments, because if you say put flutes here, well, okay, but flutes can do anything. Like what are they going to do? You know, but if you describe like, oh, we want there to be lots of energy and like, you know, a sense of like forward momentum and stuff, like, oh, okay, well, I can use woodwinds to do like lots of fast runs or something because that will be energetic. You know, like that's more helpful. And ultimately for me, that just
and that part right there. I mean, I think that the part that you just mentioned, like, is musically and sonically ridiculous. Like the whole point of it was to become like an absolute cacophony, just a mess, you know, and that was the purpose. So, you know, it makes sense that the wording and the adjectives are kind of ridiculous because the part kind of sounds ridiculous.
Yeah, that's true.
In a good way, but so
but it also describes
like Wayne's saying, it describes the feeling that you want to get, you know. So.
Yeah, you know, it perfectly describes the end of, again, new Wilderun fan. I'm still getting familiar with the back catalogue, but Tyranny is something, the second last track from Veil of Imagination, like that is sonically just overwhelming at the end as well.
That's got that sort of bit crushing sort of kind of thing going on, which is a different form of disgusting. Yeah.
And like I say, I love the Instagram. The McRib rant was particularly wonderful. And it's nice to see a band playing such serious music, still having fun, and maybe not taking it too seriously. Is that something you make an effort to do?
I think it's important to take music seriously and not take yourself seriously. Yeah. I think that's the name of the game right there. We take the music very seriously. Like Wayne was describing. I mean, I don't think we would do 5 pages of notes for a song if we didn't take the music pretty seriously. But then, if I'm sure it's different for every band. It's kind of different in terms of like what you're trying to portray to your audience, what you're trying to portray to the public. And we used to be a little bit more like, I feel like at the beginning of our career as a band, we were a little bit more careful with the things that we said. But over time, it probably just has to do with our personalities, but we just discovered that we just wanted to be more genuine and just present ourselves like we would just present ourselves in person anyways. And I don't know, it just feels better. And I don't think any of the 4 of us would feel comfortable doing otherwise. It's just us.
I mean, these days when everyone's used to social media, I think people respond to it better than a clinical, our new album will be released, pre-order here, and, you know.
Yeah, we want to sprinkle in some just the genuine thing.
Yeah. So going back to the expansive sound, all the choirs and the wide variety of instruments, I'm assuming live it's backing tracks. How do you pull it off live? Yeah,
I mean, pretty much live up to this point, pretty much anything that isn't the like core kind of metal band is backing tracks. And it would be really challenging to switch to a whole folk ensemble in the middle of a song, you know. But we generally try to translate we alter the arrangements a little bit live, so that like, you know, for instance, like a song like Wool Gatherer, where there's actually parts where like the metal band is non-existent. Like if we were to play that live, well, we wouldn't just stand there, you know, and let the backing tracks play. We would come up with some way of, you know, Evan would probably we would probably both switch to clean channels, and Evan would probably strum some chords, and I'd probably play the melody on like a low gain setting or something. We'd make slight alterations like that so that at least there's something happening that's live, but the majority of it, especially the orchestra, that's of course all backing tracks. Yeah.
Well, so the big question is, when will you guys be doing a concert with the San Francisco Symphony Orchestra?
When we have $1 billion.
That would be rad. Have you thought about bringing out even a string quartet or something?
Well, I mean, the dream is to obviously play with live orchestral players of any kind. But we've tossed around some ideas of doing some certain types of shows where maybe it's more stripped down and we get like some like players, you know, like live, some sort of live ensemble playing like that. You know, nothing concrete, of course. It's just ideas we're throwing around. I mean, that would be incredible.
It would probably have to be like a one-off. like sort of thing, maybe because it, like Wayne said, I mean, the reality of it is just it's expensive, especially if you want to get like, I mean, if you want to get union players or anything like that, then it's really expensive. But kind of depends on who you decide to hire. But and we're still working our way up to of the place to be able to do anything even related to that. So, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that the most realistic option is probably maybe a one-off show here and there where we can, like you said, a string quartet or just a couple chamber players. Maybe we can do that at some point.
Yeah.
The full orchestra thing is the wild, faraway dream that if we get to do that once in our career, that will be that.
Sure.
If we do it once in our career, it will bankrupt us.
We'll enjoy the new album. Here's the farewell show.
Yeah, this is our farewell show. we decided to spend all of our money.
We can throw it to the fans. We can say, okay, do you want a show with a full orchestra, or do you want us to keep being a band? It's your choice. And we get to a poll, and then the audience can decide.
You're playing with fire there, man.
Yeah, we might shoot ourselves in the feet accidentally.
Listen, one more quick question about the recording. Looking at your studio vlogs you've been putting up, did the Steve Vai drill picking make its way onto the album in the end?
No. We really wanted it to. That was just a fun experiment. We were, I don't even remember whose idea. It was either Joe's or Justin's idea. I think Joe just had always wanted to do it, so he just did it. And we had like a minute, so I don't think it made it on, unfortunately. We were curious. We were like, maybe will this actually produce like a really cool result, like that we could actually use? And it didn't really. Honestly, the main problem with it was interference. The electronics of the drill would like have all the electronic interference with the pickup. So there was no way, but it was worth a shot, So.
Yeah.
Gotta try it.
Well, with the songs in the album that have been released as singles with music videos, there are, of course, radio edits because 11 minutes is not always radio friendly. How do you decide what to cut out?
Well, I actually kind of demoed out a couple different versions of radio edits, just on my own, very crudely, and just on my computer. And then once we kind of came to a decision, because I think I maybe did like 2 or 3 versions of each song. Yeah. Just we tried to figure out which ones would flow the best. I mean, none of them are ideal, of course. The whole song, the full songs are constructed to flow the best. Yeah. So in a radio edit is no matter what not going to flow as well as the original song. But, we try to get it make as much sense as possible. So yeah, I mocked up 2 or 3 versions of each of those, and once we all decided, I basically would just send that demo to Jens Bogren, and he mixed the radio edit. Basically, just it was already mixed, but he would just make the transition smooth and so it sounds fairly seamless, as opposed to just a hard audio cut.
Yeah. And I think one of the radio edits that worked best was Passenger. And I wanted to know, when you were making the music video and you have the choir bit where you're all singing, were you not tempted to do the Bohemian Rhapsody thing and get yourselves in the diamond formation for that chant? I was looking at it, I'm like, oh, it's a wasted opportunity, man.
And the black background. And
I think we mentioned that while filming it at one point. I think one of us had a worry that it was going to be that, but no, it's always tempting, of course.
Yeah. Well, hey, a little while ago you mentioned Joe, and so I know that he recorded on this album, but it looks like he's not in the band going forward. What can you tell us about his departure?
Well, Joe is an incredible visual and artist, and he does tattoos, and he's been working hard, very, very hard for the last few years as like an apprentice and working at a tattoo shop and moving his way up. And he finally got to a point where he's able to kind of run his own business.
Nice.
And by the time we were recording Epigon, it was more just like this is like really where his passion lies right now, is this tattoo artist stuff. And it had become a situation more or less where it was like, he felt he was being pulled too strongly in two directions, wanting to do his visual art. And then of course, obligations to the band and wanting to be successful at that too. And I think ultimately it was just a matter of him having to make like a priority shift for himself, which we like 100% support him. There's like zero bad blood between any of us. We're all just as good of friends as we ever have been. And we want him to be successful at what he's doing. So there's, more power to him. He picked the thing that he's really driven to do right now. And he's succeeding at it. So, way to go, Joe. That's essentially what happened.
In the words of Ron Swanson, I think it can be summed up, which is, don't half-ass two things, whole-ass one thing. I think that was basically the mantra for Joe for that, was that, there's a reality with this sort of stuff, especially as we're trying to grow ourselves as a band. I mean, it totally makes sense. There's just a certain level of commitment that, especially if you're pulling yourself between two art-based careers, like it's so hard. It becomes impossible to yeah, like you said, he just needed to focus, and we all totally understand.
No, yeah, sure. And have you got plans to bring anyone else into the band?
Well, it worked out with Wayne. This is probably the easiest situation almost anyone's ever had with member switching, is because Wayne was the original lead guitarist of the band, and he was unable to. I mean, you could talk more about it, but he's just unable to play live with us for a few years, which is why we initially got Joe in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was working. We all met at music school, and then we did the first album before we graduated. And then after we graduated and moved back home, I started working for a music production company doing composition stuff for TV and film. And it just, it's all consuming. Like it just, fills up your whole life. You're at that studio, at that workplace all hours of the day. And so me being on the West Coast and at that time, all of Wilderun being on the East Coast, it was super, super challenging to like, hey guys, we want to do a show. It's like, okay, well now I got to fly from California to Massachusetts, for like easy. 1 week. It's just not feasible. It's expensive. And like, how do we rehearse to do these one-off shows? And, like when you're a small local band, you got to like do as many shows as possible to boost your profile and whatnot. So it just became very apparent that it would be easier for the band if there was a guitar player already on the East Coast that could just go play,
I get you.
The shows. And I've been friends with Joe at Berkeley for a while. And we had guitar classes together and stuff. So it was like, hey, I know a guy who's really excellent, and you should just get him to play guitar in the band because you just fit right in.
Yeah.
And so that's how Joe got into the band. And then kind of funny, like the inverse happened where Joe's job has become a thing he, that's filling his time and wants to do. And so now I'm back in, which I'm thrilled about. I love playing guitar. I love playing this music on guitar. So yeah, I'm really pumped to be doing it again.
To clarify, Wayne never left the band. He was just, for a while, he was just kind of solely the orchestrator, just because that made the most sense for a remote position.
Right. But, yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah, for the other album, I did all the orchestra stuff, and I would record. I could record like some folk instrument things for the albums. That's you can send audio files because we've got Dropbox, so that's easy enough. But actually playing shows was not feasible. So yeah, my role in the band just shifted around a bunch until this point.
Wow, seems like a well-oiled machine at this point. And you mentioned music school there. Did you all go to music school?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we went to Berkeley College of Music in Boston. So, typical prog metal band thing.
I was just going to say, one of the highest academic standards of any band I've ever interviewed, for sure.
There's a lot of smart people out there.
Yeah. No, wow, that's amazing, man. And so you guys had a bit of a tour at the end of last year. Any plans for a tour coming up, or are things just too uncertain at the moment?
Yeah, right now, unfortunately, they're a little too uncertain. The only thing we have planned, the only thing we have booked is we're playing Prague Power USA in June, which we're super excited about. That's like a festival that we've all known about for years and just makes total sense with our style of music. So really stoked about that. But unfortunately, nothing else planned. We're trying. We're just reaching out. Our agent is trying to help us reach out to anyone that we can, but unfortunately nothing confirmed yet. So stay tuned.
I'm very much looking forward to you guys coming to Berlin. Have you played here before?
No, we have not left North America yet. We had plans. We had plans to, but obviously the pandemic put a nail in that coffin. So we're gonna. That's like the biggest. That's like the most important thing. Like the number one to do is to get. Honestly, just anywhere outside of North America. So.
Canada would count. Well, that's awesome. Looking forward to hopefully getting you guys over here before too long. And thank you for working in the words coffin and nail. That's bonus points.
Yeah, as soon as I said it, I was like, I think I saw it, and then that's why I chose those words. Yeah.
No, I'm all for it, man. Strong branding.
Yeah.
So I like to wrap up all the interviews with a quick lightning round. I'll just give you guys two options and just tell me which one you pick. Safe?
Sure.
All
right. Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Cats.
Ooh,
that can sum up the personality difference between me and Wayne pretty well right there.
Yeah, there you go. You've got it. That pretty much is it.
I wrote that before I heard your dogs barking, so shouldn't need to ask. All right. Ozzy or Dio?
Oh, man.
Dio.
I mean, guys, Dio's is just a fucking legend, right? Like, I mean, so is Ozzy, though. Like, that's a tough one.
So we got Dio. What do you get?
It's personal taste, not like better or worse. Just personal taste, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I think either answer would be acceptable, but Ozzy era Sabbath. Maybe we can all agree on that, perhaps.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. I would say that if we're not talking about solo careers, if we're talking about Sabbath, then I'd say Ozzy.
I'm just trying to be diplomatic,
Yeah.
We don't want to make anyone mad. They're both great.
Definitely not Aussie fans. So, PlayStation or Xbox?
PlayStation.
Yeah, I used to be a big Xbox guy, but I play a lot more PlayStation now. So I guess I'll say PlayStation too.
What do you guys play at the moment?
I just finished playing Days Gone. I know it's like an older game, but that game is incredible because I don't think in recent memory, I have not played a game that was that long, like that massive. The story, it probably took me 5 or 6 months to play that game. I mean, granted, I have a kid, so I get like 2 minutes to play every, but
yeah,
it's a decently long game, and I appreciated that. It wasn't over so fast that you're like, oh wait, I didn't even do anything.
Well, I mean, you're right, but I finished it and got the platinum trophy in under a month. But I don't have kids. So.
There you go. Yeah, that's the key.
So, some culinary delights from your hometown. Clam chowder or lobster roll?
Lobster roll.
I would actually go clam chowder just because lobster rolls are always like so expensive.
That's true.
So I always feel resentful at how much money I spend on a lobster roll. I never quite feel like it's worth it. Clam chowder is usually reasonably priced and always good, or usually pretty good. So like, I'd actually just out of resentment, I'll go with it.
I love it. And the final question, with which I end every interview: Star Wars prequels or Star Wars sequels? Not the original trilogy.
Prequels 100%, and I will fight anyone to the death on that. Sorry,
yeah.
That was a little strong. I should have waited for Wayne to answer.
No, Evan, it's so funny because Evan and I don't think there's a time where Evan and I get together where we don't end up talking about Star Wars somehow. Like literally every time we're all talking about Star Wars. and I have to agree with Evan. As cringy as the prequels are, they are a more cohesive story than the new ones.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh,
so if I had to pick, I would pick prequels as well.
Right, well, I'll add that to the running tally. Update the scoreboard. Well, guys, Wilderun, new album Epigon is out now on Century Media. Go check it out on Spotify and anywhere where music is. And Wayne, Evan, thanks for being with me today, guys.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's great. It's a lot of fun.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's nice meeting you, man.
You too, guys.
Hey, guys. Thanks for watching. It's YouTube. You know the drill. Be sure to like and subscribe to get notifications about any future interviews I post here on the page, because you never know who it's going to be. I don't know who it's going to be. Could be Scott Stapp or someone good. But like and subscribe, and there'll be a new interview every second week. There's also, of course, a new episode of the Coffin Nail live on Keith FM. That's KEITHFEM.com every second Friday from 6 to 8 p.m. German time. You can also go to thecoffinnailradio.com for all things Coffin Nail related, and patreon.com/thecoffinnail to get involved with what we're doing next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.